Yeah, that was quite the segue. I was not expecting so many conversations about logistics, supply chain, and manufacturing today. So definitely grateful to be here. I'm Todd. I'm CEO and founder of Healy Labs. As we all know, DePIN is entering the real world. Web3 is entering the real world. We're seeing a lot of real-world applications come online, and as they've been talking about earlier, there's a lot of technology that's available now to make these things possible. So one thing that we're really not seeing yet is DePIN logistics, and that's what we're working on. So DePIN logistics is a new and emerging category. And when you look at logistics, how many people in here know anything about logistics whatsoever? Show of hands? Couple? All of it? You know everything? Most people, when they press a button on their phone, they get something from Amazon, and they think, wow, the world is great. Supply chains work, everything's functioning proper. No problems there, right? Well, behind the scenes, what's happening to get that product to your door is you have this very complex web of data. And so you have highly fragmented systems. You have all these different data silos that don't really talk to each other. So the shippers, the brokers, the carriers that are trying to coordinate the movement of these goods from one place to another have these giant call centers, and all these people do is they collect data and they manage the process of moving that thing from point A to point B. So they're sitting there, phone, email, and text, collecting data, putting it into their system so that they have the most relevant and accurate information. So ultimately what this does is it creates a lot of problems in the industry, primarily in the way of bad data. So bad data ultimately opens up the opportunity for things like fraud, theft, errors, and waste, which creates a lot of inefficiencies around processes, around processing shipments, around processing invoices, and ultimately opening up the opportunity for cyber threats. In the last year alone, there's been a lot of carriers that have been hacked to the tunes losing hundreds of millions of dollars. So in this $9 trillion market globally, each year, $600 billion is lost due to errors, theft, fraud, and waste. And when you think about the size of that problem, the Swedish economy is $585 billion. So the problem is larger than the economy of Sweden, which is the 23rd largest in the world. Pretty mind-blowing. How many people are from Sweden? I know we had some last time. No, they left. All right. So we've seen this problem before, primarily on Wall Street. If you remember back in the 80s and 90s, you used to have these trading floors that were full of people, and all they were doing was collecting information, matching bid-ask spreads, and using that information to make trades. Well, what happened as a result of the 2000s, Wall Street was digitized. Now the floors are empty. There's nobody there. What's happening in logistics right now is people are trying to create that same type of experience. The problem is, on one side, you have these centralized platforms that ultimately, when the user puts their data in the platform, they lose control, they lose ownership, and in this industry, data is the gold. That's the value that you have for your company. On the other side of the world, you've seen some blockchain implementations that people have tried, but ultimately, technology wasn't ready. Too slow, too expensive, not a good time. So the problem still remains. One prime example, and some people in the room may know about the TradeLens implementation. So Maersk and IBM Hyperledger got together. They built a permissioned ledger blockchain. They ended up having a lot of success in the way of events, registering 4 billion events from 300 different companies. But ultimately it failed because it was too expensive. There was scalability issues, and it was very centralized. Nobody could trust Maersk with their data or Maersk owning a network that has their data. So ultimately, the project failed. And when I talked to the people who created the TradeLens project, what they mentioned is that they realized that it needed to be open, it needed to be decentralized, and ultimately, what they didn't say is that it needed to be DePIN. And so that's what Healy built. Healy built a DePIN technology that connects all these different systems together seamlessly, standardizes the data into a single format, and then tokenizes that data to create a master record so that all those systems now have the same information. So when you're trying to coordinate the movement of something from point A to point B, when it's updated in one system, it updates it on all systems. In addition to that, we use our token to incentivize and reward users, ultimately for behaviors that are going to reduce errors, theft, fraud, and waste, cutting into that $600 billion. So far to date, we have $2.2 billion in transaction volume that's been committed to the network. In the next 18 months, we predict that we'll be able to generate $4.7 million in network revenue. Ultimately, those contract value is $8.7 million in network revenue, and we have an additional 10.6 in our pipeline. We're well on our way to becoming the highest grossing DePIN project, primarily because it's such a big industry. A very small impact, a very small 1.5% of the logistics market would generate $2.7 billion in network revenue. And to put that into context, that's more than Ethereum does each year. So a very small percentage of the market can have a massive impact. Thank you for your time today. Would love to open the floor up for any questions that you guys may have. Yeah.
Who's your biggest client? Like, who's using this that's giving you all the revenue right now?
So we're partnered with freight brokers. They're the middlemen. They have distribution of shippers and carriers. And then we're partnering with their technology providers so that we can get the data from them and put it into the network.
Would Unilever or Maersk would they embrace this?
At some point, yeah. Yeah. Regulation would help. I hate to say that, but it would help because a lot of people are unclear about what, how do I put tokens on my balance sheet? How do we account for this from a tax perspective? Also, you have public, if you're a publicly traded company, you have compliance measures. So they're not really our target audience in the beginning. We're focused on the small to medium size, which is fundamentally how Web3 has been built from day one. Yeah.
Just answer the question a little bit, but is there a certain sector within logistics that is either especially challenging or especially receptive to this, like within marine shipping, like dry bulk or containers, or is there
Yeah. Yeah, so targeting in the beginning, we're targeting truckload. It's a very fragmented market. 80% of the market out there is 1 to 5 trucks, small fleet owner operators. That's really the biggest problem from a coordination perspective. It's also a $900 billion market in the US alone. So that's where we're focused on day one.
And has there been any special resistance from a certain area of logistics?
It's really just been an education thing. Educating people on a new operating model is a tall feat. So, yeah, we've really, nobody's said no. They've said, I don't know. And so it's taken time to get people up to speed and educate them. Yeah.
What's the primary benefit of decentralization in the longer term?
Yeah, so primary benefit is increase in profit by 50%, primarily because you're cutting out all the costs that they traditionally have today, that massive floor, right? So creating that efficiency creates more profit for the supply side. And then on the demand side, it creates more predictable, more profitable, and at the end of the day, more sustainable shipping. So reducing carbon, on the shipper side, helps them with their ESG scores. Sal, you had a question?
Yeah, the $600 billion in annual losses, what drives where do those losses come from, and how does crypto solve them or address them?
Yeah, great question. So much like blockchain in general, it solves the coordination problem. In this case, it's the coordination of data. So by coordinating the data, bring it into one place, you're reducing the amount of errors, you're reducing the amount of waste because you have the information in one place. It's decentralized, it's open, it's secure, it's anonymous, that machine learning and AI can use to make better decisions and better outcomes. So that's ultimately where that number comes in. And to some degree, it's still a very paper-driven process, and the benefits of digitization are minimal in the eyes of the people, a lot of people in the industry. So when you change the game theory, when you change the outcomes, that ultimately makes it more profitable to adopt new technology, to adopt a new data standard, and to play into this new ecosystem where you're able to make more money and be more profitable. So what I see happening is that we just launched our testnet in July. We had 109 shipments so far. We have a contract, well, we have an integration we're doing right now that would bring us up to 10,000 shipments. And we just signed a deal this week that would bring us 1 million shipments a month. So what I'm seeing happening is that people are coming in, and as more and more people are coming in, what's going to happen is they're going to be a lot more efficient. They're going to be able to be more profitable. That's going to get passed on to their consumers or customers. And ultimately, they'll be able to provide a better service. So it's going to be a sucking effect. As soon as that flywheel gets going, that we all know and love in DePIN and tokenomics, it's going to have that sucking effect where you're going to see shipments just move out of the traditional networks and traditional systems into our network. Yeah.
What's the biggest pushback you get from like the decision makers and logistic companies outside of like the education thing? Yeah, we don't know.
Great question. So it would help tremendously if we cleaned up our act as an industry. They see a lot of stuff on the news about meme coins and NFTs and all that, and if that's your thing, so be it. But it makes it more difficult to create real-world applications because that's what, in the minds of people, that's what they see. So when I go to talk to companies, I don't talk about blockchain or crypto. I can't because they'll laugh me out of the room. It's the only thing that'll get me out of the room faster than pulling the fire alarm, right? So we have to say tokenization, we have to say rewards, right? And then we can draw the parallels between, those fuel rewards that you love, you stop at a specific gas station to fill up, they're like that, but in this case for a network. So it's things like that where we have to create parallels because a lot of the perception in the minds of these people are oriented around, oh, I saw Dogecoin or I saw, I saw Justin Bieber lost 25 million on an NFT. I've gotten that one. I used to go in and I used to say the word NFT. Can't anymore because people are like, "Whoa, you mean like a monkey?" And I'm like, "No, not like a monkey." So yeah. But the more we get real-world use cases and we get real-world applications, people are going to start to take us more serious. And so what I love about what's happening in these 3 rooms right here is we're all talking about how do we create real utility, how do we create real-world use cases, because that's what's going to actually change the world.